Her hand brushed mine again, and in that instant, everything changed. I never thought a simple Thursday evening could feel like this. The sun had just started slipping behind the rooftops, painting the street in those soft, golden hues that made everything feel quieter than it actually was. I was sitting on the edge of my couch, my phone buzzing lazily on the coffee table, when the knock came, 3 soft taps that seemed too deliberate to be casual. "Hey," she said before I could even open the door, her voice low, warm, and just slightly hesitant. Marianne, my neighbor, 45, maybe, but she carried herself in a way that made the years feel irrelevant. Graceful, deliberate, like someone who knew exactly how to move through a room without ever needing permission. And yet tonight, her shoulders seemed just a little tense, her hand lingering on the doorknob longer than necessary. I made a bit too much pasta," she added, glancing down at the bag in her hands. There was a small laugh in her eyes, the kind that hints at nerves, and it struck something deep inside me. I wanted to tell her it was fine, that I'd be happy with any excuse to come inside her apartment. I stepped aside, trying not to let my own nerves show. "You didn't have to," I said, but she didn't hear me, or maybe she didn't care. She just stepped past me, and that's when it happened. Her hand brushed mine. Again and again. It was unintentional, I think, but the repeated contact felt deliberate. Electric. My chest tightened, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Just a fluke. The apartment smelled faintly of garlic and rosemary, and I realized how close I was standing to her, close enough to notice the soft perfume she wore, the way it lingered in the air long after she moved. She laughed at something I said, light, effortless, but the sound felt like it was meant only for me. My hands itched to reach for hers, to hold them, to do anything that would give me a reason to stay here a moment longer. We moved to the kitchen, the space small and intimate, and I watched her pour wine into 2 glasses. Her fingers brushed mine again when she handed me mine. I could feel the warmth of her skin, the subtle pulse that seemed to sync with my own. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. She was the kind of woman who seemed untouchable, and yet, somehow, inviting me closer without a word. There was a pause when she leaned against the counter, folding her arms. I want to speak, but the words got caught in my throat. Instead, I watched the way her eyes softened when she caught mine lingering too long. And I thought, I could get lost here, in this moment, and never find the way back. Then, just as the tension began to build into something almost unbearable, the doorbell rang. Sharp, insistent, and jarring against the quiet hum of the apartment. Marianne froze, her fingers tightening around the wine glass. I glanced at her, and she looked back at me, a flicker of something unspoken passing between us. Curiosity, fear, maybe something more dangerous. I wanted to ask who it could be, to break the silence, but her hand found mine again, just slightly, just enough to stop my heart for a second. The kind of touch that says, without saying a word, stay. And I did, because whatever waited at the door didn't matter. Not yet. I never noticed it before. The way her apartment felt like a reflection of her life. The walls lined with books, some worn and dog-eared, photographs tucked into frames without much fuss. A hint of nostalgia lingered in the air, like she'd lived fully, but carried pieces of the past she wasn't ready to let go. We settled at the small table, the soft clink of cutlery against plates filling the silence between us. I wanted to ask her everything about the laugh lines around her eyes, the faint sadness that sometimes flickered across her face, but I didn't. Part of me was afraid of the answers. "You always cook like this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light, though it shook slightly. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes immediately. "Not always. I used to cook with someone long ago," she said softly, a hint of hesitation in her tone. Her fingers brushed the rim of her glass, as if trying to anchor herself. He didn't stay. The words hung in the air. I wanted to say something, anything, but the truth was I couldn't find the right thing. Instead, I watched her, noting the way her shoulders tensed when she mentioned him, the way her fingers traced invisible patterns on the table. Vulnerability, delicate and raw, and somehow terrifying. I thought about my own life. Messy, uncertain, too many nights spent wondering if I'd ever matter to someone. And now, sitting across from Marianne, I realized how reckless it was to even let myself feel this way. She was so far beyond my world, yet here she was, letting me close enough to notice the small tremble in her hand, the way her lips parted when she was about to say something she probably shouldn't. The age gap, the difference in life experiences. I could feel the invisible line we weren't supposed to cross, and that made every brush of her fingers against mine feel like an unspoken rebellion. I tried to tell myself it was just dinner, just a friendly gesture, but every time our hands met, I felt that line blur, a warmth spreading through me that I couldn't name aloud. We laughed about something trivial, her telling a story about a cat she once tried to adopt, me exaggerating my own clumsy attempts at adulthood. But beneath it all, the tension pulsed, the unspoken awareness that we shouldn't, and yet we couldn't quite look away from one another. Finally, as I reached for the last piece of garlic bread, our hands collided again. She didn't pull away this time. Instead, she let her fingers rest over mine, just slightly, a silent acknowledgement that we were both feeling it. The kind of touch that speaks without words, the kind that promises understanding even when nothing is said aloud. I swallowed hard, aware of the electricity between us, and for the first time I felt seen, not just by anyone but by her. The unspoken promise lingered in the air. Something was beginning here, and neither of us could ignore it. I shouldn't have leaned closer. I knew at the moment our shoulders brushed as we reached for the wine bottle at the same time. My pulse slammed in my ears. Marianne's hand lingered near mine, just a breath apart, and I thought I might actually forget where I was, forget the age difference, the risks, everything except her. Then the sound of keys rattling in the doorframe snapped me back. My stomach dropped. Her ex-husband, or, well, someone from her past, though she never said he lived nearby, stepped into the hallway, carrying groceries like nothing was wrong. Marianne stiffened instantly, the warmth between us evaporating into the cool air. "Hey, Marianne, thought I'd drop by," the man said casually, though the way he glanced at me suggested he sensed more than he let on. I stepped back, fumbling with a wine cork, heart hammering. Marianne's hand retreated from mine, and I felt the empty space like a punch. Just some pasta," she said quickly, voice clipped, hiding something I couldn't name. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to tell myself it was nothing, but my eyes kept darting to her, to the way her shoulders hunched, the way her gaze briefly found mine before darting away. She was trying to protect me, or maybe herself, or maybe both. He stayed only a few minutes, but it was enough. Enough to leave tension thick like fog in the apartment, settling over us. As soon as the door clicked shut, Marianne leaned against the counter, silent. Her fingers twitched where mine had been moments ago. I shouldn't," she started, then stopped, her eyes darkening with unspoken guilt. I didn't say anything because I couldn't. My chest ached, not just from wanting her, but from the fear of wanting her, of knowing this shouldn't be happening. Yet, somehow we both stayed, drawn like magnets toward the very thing that terrified us. I took a step closer. "It's okay," I whispered, though the words felt inadequate, meaningless even. But she didn't pull away. She let me stay in the space between us, let the warmth settle for a heartbeat, and that heartbeat stretched impossibly long. Then, almost without thinking, her hand brushed mine again, not intentionally, I think, but it lingered, just slightly, just long enough for me to feel her pulse, the subtle tremor in her fingers, the quiet surrender of someone who wants more than they can admit. I swallowed hard, caught in the mix of fear and desire. Maybe we should just talk," I said, voice low. She smiled faintly, tight, almost fragile. "Yeah, Maybe we should, she murmured, but her eyes didn't leave mine. And for a second, the world narrowed to just the two of us, this impossible, intoxicating tension. The sound of a text ping on my phone broke the spell. I glanced down, and my heart sank. A message from my roommate. Hey, come back. Weird news. I didn't read it. I couldn't. Not yet. My attention was fully, dangerously, painfully on her. We didn't speak again for a moment. We just stood there, inches apart, hands almost touching, both of us silently wondering how far this could go before it all came crashing down. The next evening, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Every mundane moment. Walking to the corner store, rinsing dishes, scrolling aimlessly through my phone, felt hollow without the memory of her hand brushing mine. I knew it was dangerous to feel this way. She was more than I should ever want, more than I could ever have. But the pull was irresistible. She invited me over again, casually, like nothing had shifted. But everything had. The air between us vibrated with unspoken words, longing that neither of us could voice. I noticed at the moment I stepped in, the subtle glance she threw toward me, her fingers resting a heartbeat too long on the countertop as she stirred sauce. We talked about nothing and everything. Work, books, the trivial complaints of life that somehow felt weightless in her presence. But I could feel the tension coiling tighter with every passing second, a quiet storm threatening to break. Then there's a knock at her door, a neighbor, this time, asking for a favor. Marianne excused herself briefly, leaving me alone in the kitchen. My chest ached in her absence. I tried to focus, tried to convince myself it was nothing, but when she returned, our eyes locked, and I felt it, the simmering intensity neither of us could hide. "Why do you keep coming back?" she asked softly, almost a whisper. Her hand brushed mine again as she passed, and I froze, my breath catching. It wasn't just touch this time. It was accusation, curiosity, desire, and fear all tangled into one. I don't know, I admitted, voice low. Maybe because I can't stay away. She blinked, lips parting as though to say something more, then closed her mouth, hesitating. I wanted her to speak, wanted her to tear down the invisible wall that kept us cautious. "I shouldn't feel this," she whispered finally. "You're too young. I'm older. There are things about me, about us, that make this impossible. Impossible." That word hit me like a punch to the gut. Impossible made my stomach twist. My hands itched to reach for hers again, to hold her, to erase the distance. I stepped closer. "Maybe impossible doesn't mean it shouldn't happen," I said, barely above a whisper. Her breath caught. Her eyes flickered with something I couldn't name. Fear? Desire? Both? She looked away, then back, and suddenly it was too much. The air felt like it had thickened, pressing down on us, suffocating in its intensity. "I can't," she started, her voice trembling, and then stopped. Her hand brushed mine once more, but this time with a deliberate, almost desperate linger. My chest tightened. My mind screamed at me to pull away, but my body betrayed me, inching closer, drawn toward her as though by some invisible thread. The world outside disappeared. All that existed was the heat between us, the unspoken confessions hovering on the tip of our tongues, the electric tension in our fingertips. And just as my lips hovered near hers, seconds from crossing a line we'd both been dancing around for days, the sound of her phone buzzing shattered the moment. She jumped slightly, startled, breaking the spell. Her hand recoiled, leaving mine empty, and I realized the decision, the risk, the confession, none of it had happened yet. I thought last night was the most intense thing that could happen between us. I thought I had felt it all, the longing, the fear, the pull towards something forbidden. But today proved me wrong. I arrived at her apartment to find Marianne pacing, eyes darting toward the door every few seconds. There was a tension in her shoulders I hadn't seen before, like she was bracing for a storm. "You need to sit down," she said, voice tight. My stomach churned. Something had happened. Before I could ask, she exhaled sharply. I, I didn't tell you everything. My heart skipped. What do you mean? She hesitated, chewing on her lower lip, a micro movement I'd memorized over the past days. Last week my ex, he came by, saw us together. Not really, but he noticed. I froze. Not the words themselves, but the weight behind them. Saw us together. Not really, yet he had noticed. Marianne's gaze dropped, and I saw the shame flicker across her features, the kind of shame that makes someone shrink inside themselves. I thought it was fine, but now he's saying things, she whispered. Her hands twisted in her apron, fingers gripping the fabric tightly. He's making it complicated, threatening to tell people. I didn't want to drag you into this. Drag me into this. Those words hit me harder than any slap could. My mind raced. My pulse throbbed. Every thought of touching her, every inch we had dared to cross in silence, now seemed fragile. Fragile and exposed. I should go, I said instinctively, trying to keep my voice steady. But my body betrayed me. I couldn't move. My eyes kept finding hers, pleading silently for some reassurance that we weren't finished before we'd even begun. She shook her head, stepping closer despite the fear in her expression. No, don't. I don't want this to stop, she said, voice barely audible, trembling, yet so raw and honest it broke through every ounce of logic in me. I swallowed hard, heart hammering. Marianne, I don't care what he says. I don't care about rules, or age, or anyone else. I want this. I want you. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just her face, the subtle quiver in her lips, the storm behind her gaze. Then, suddenly, she stepped back, shaking her head. It's not just about him, she said, voice breaking. It's complicated, and you deserve someone who won't drag you into chaos. Chaos. That's exactly what I wanted, in a way I couldn't explain. Her hesitation, her fear, made the pull toward her even stronger. I reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away, not immediately. Just a slight tremble, a hesitation, but enough to let me hold on. I don't care about safe, I whispered. I care about us. Her eyes softened for just a second, glimmering with something I hadn't seen before. Desire wrapped in vulnerability, fear mingled with hope. Then, a sudden ping from her phone startled us both, a text from him. My stomach sank. Whatever choice she made next, the game had changed. What I thought was ours wasn't guaranteed anymore. The apartment was quiet, but it felt heavy, like the air itself had been holding its breath all day. Marianne sat on the edge of the sofa, her hands clasped together in her lap. I could see the tension in her shoulders, the tight line of her jaw, and the way her eyes kept flicking toward the door as if expecting him to walk back in. I can't keep doing this, she whispered finally. I can't lie to everyone. I can't. I stepped closer, my own chest aching. Then don't, I said softly. Don't lie. Not to me, not to yourself. I don't care about anything else. Only you. Her eyes flicked to mine, searching, uncertain. You don't understand. It's complicated. People will judge. He's unpredictable. And you're young. I deserve what? I cut in gently, my hand hovering near hers. You? For a moment, she didn't answer. She just let her gaze linger, heavy and searching, and I felt her hesitation like an electric pulse through my fingers. Finally, she exhaled a slow, shaky sound and reached out, letting her hand rest against mine. Warm, alive, trembling slightly. The gesture wasn't bold, wasn't dramatic, but it said everything. I don't know if it's right, she admitted, voice breaking. Yves, I've tried to fight this. Tried to tell myself it's foolish. But her words faltered, swallowed by a breath that didn't quite reach the end. But what? I urged softly, stepping closer, feeling the magnetic pull between us like gravity. But I want it too, she confessed finally. Her eyes glistened, and my chest tightened with the raw honesty in that simple phrase. She was giving herself permission, and maybe me too. We sat there for a long moment, just our hands intertwined, fingers brushing, neither saying more. The world outside could have collapsed, and I wouldn't have noticed. All that mattered was this fragile, trembling truth between us. And yet, even in that moment of clarity, fear lingered. Her ex, the neighbors, the difference in our ages, the risk of being judged, all of it pressed against us like a storm waiting at the edge of the window. I could feel it, but I chose to ignore it. I had her here, and that was enough for now. She shifted closer, resting her head lightly against my shoulder. Not a kiss, not a promise, but an acknowledgement of the connection we'd dared to risk. My heart ached in the best possible way, raw and unsteady, as if it might shatter and mend at the same time. "I don't know what happens next," she whispered, voice so soft I had to lean in to hear. "But I want to try. With you. I'll try too," I said, pressing my forehead lightly against hers. "Whatever comes, we face it together." For the first time, we were honest with each other, messy, flawed, exposed. The tension hadn't vanished. It had transformed into something beautiful, fragile, undeniable. And though the future was uncertain, though the world outside would still judge and test us, in this moment we were unbreakable, bound by truth, desire, and the quiet courage to choose each other. The morning sunlight spilled through the kitchen window, soft and golden, catching the edges of Marianne's hair as she moved about the small apartment. I leaned against the doorframe, watching her, feeling a strange mix of awe and comfort. Somehow, after everything, the fear, the tension, the near misses, we had made it here, quiet, ordinary, and yet extraordinary. She turned, catching me staring, and smiled softly. Not the playful, teasing smile from earlier nights, but something quieter, deeper, more intimate. Her hand brushed mine as she reached for a cup of coffee, and this time I didn't flinch. I let my fingers lace with hers, warm and steady. "I can't believe it's real," I said, voice low, almost a whisper. "That we're here." Her eyes softened. "Neither could I," she admitted, a faint laugh in her tone, but tinged with something more, relief, maybe, or wonder. "But it is." Somehow, the apartment was quiet except for the gentle clink of mugs, the faint hum of morning life outside the window. It felt like a world built just for us, fragile and temporary, yet utterly ours in that moment. I wanted to freeze time, to hold onto this calm before the chaos of reality returned. "I never expected," I trailed off, unsure how to finish the thought. Not that I didn't want her. God, I wanted her, but that someone like her, someone so real, so complicated, could choose me. "Choose us." "You did," she said softly, reading my hesitation, her thumb brushing my knuckles. "You showed me it's possible, that I can take a risk and not fall alone." I felt my chest tighten, the emotion too heavy for words. There had been fear, temptation, chaos, even heartbreak. But now, woven through it all was clarity. The risk, the uncertainty, the danger of feeling too much, it had led here. To this simple, intimate connection, where touch said more than any words could. We lingered there, hands entwined, the unspoken promises of yesterday and today hovering between us. I realized that love didn't have to be perfect to be true. It could be messy, complicated, human, and still be worth every stolen glance, every lingering touch, every whispered confession in the dark. As Marianne leaned her head against my shoulder, I knew that whatever the world might say, whatever challenges awaited us outside this apartment, we had already found something rare: honesty, trust, and a connection neither time nor circumstance could erase. The future remained uncertain, yes, but for the first time in a long time, it felt full of possibility. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid to explore it. We sat together in silence, and it wasn't awkward. It was home. So here we are, at the end of this chapter, yet knowing that our story is only just beginning. I hope you felt the tension, the desire, the slow burn between us. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?